Welcome to my second free class for Summer School 2023. Today we're going to talk about the 5 reasons I rejected manuscripts once upon a time. I've actually never taught this or talked about this at any length, and I thought it might be helpful for y'all to see what are some of the common issues. To give you a little bit of context, I'm AJ Harper. And I wrote the book Write a Must Read. But before that, the reason I wrote that book is because I was a ghostwriter for 10 years. I teach a lot of authors how to write great books. I've been an editor, and I wanted to help people write better books. I also co-founded a small press, which became an award-winning small press and was later sold to a mid-tier publisher, Chicago Review Press. And so for that small press, I was an acquisitions editor. When I say manuscripts that I'm rejecting, it's generally when I was in that role. But I will tell you, I also rejected manuscripts as a ghostwriter and editor, stuff that I didn't necessarily want to work on because I knew it was going to be too challenging for me and the author maybe needed to go back to the drawing board. So how today will work is I'm going to do some education for you. If you have questions, I want you to put it in the chat, and then Laura Stone, our Dean of Students, waving right there, she will let me know there's a question because I can't see the chat very well when I'm teaching. And I'll try and answer you in real time, or you can store up your questions. That's cool too. No problem. I don't think we'll run the full 90 minutes today unless you have a lot of questions. I want to keep it really loose and open, and I encourage you to ask me stuff, clarifying questions, ask me for examples, because this is a class that I've not shared before, and it's good to get that inside perspective on publishing and what lights us up and what makes us want to put books in a slush pile. So again, put your questions in the chat. Please stay muted. Laura will let me know about the questions. We're going to go ahead and get started. Once I'm done with the teaching part, we'll take a short break and then we'll come back for a longer Q&A if you want it. Okay? All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I also hope that you'll stay on and listen to the other class list of the other classes we have this summer that might be of interest to you. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is me. You can learn all about me by going to my website at aj@ajharper.com. Incidentally, if you're not on my mailing list, it's a good thing to do because I send out a Friday newsletter with really helpful tips that you can handle in a short period of time. And it's also how you'll find out about other free classes, our writing sprint marathons, and all sorts of good stuff. All right. So we're going to talk about the 5 reasons I said no to manuscripts. And I want to share this really depressing stat with you. Super depressing. Between 1% and 2% of manuscripts submitted will be accepted for publication. Oh man, that is so depressing. I get it. It seems insurmountable. But the thing is, it's actually good news for you because the reason why this happens is because a lot of people don't know what they're doing and they disregard really basic stuff. So you can have a competitive advantage just by paying attention to what I say to you, so you can be in the other end of this. Okay, that 1% and 2%, it seems impossible, but you have to take it all into context. Most people don't follow instructions. Most people don't do their homework, right? So if you can follow instructions and do your homework, you have a massive advantage, and I do mean massive. Okay. So we're going to talk about that today. So there are reasons for rejection that you can't control. And this goes for, today I'm talking about nonfiction and fiction, okay? And I'll try and talk about the differences as they come up. But reasons for rejection that you absolutely can't control. It has nothing to do with you. Okay. The publisher's front list. A publisher's front list are the books that are coming out and the books that have been out for maybe the past year. Some people like to say 3 years, but somewhere between 1 and 3 years. So why does that matter? Because if there's a book that's similar to yours on a similar topic, and it's part of the publisher's recent backlist or front list, they're not going to pick you up. And it's not because of anything you did. It's because they don't want to have too many competing titles, right? It could be because of the publisher's internal goals. So publishers will state their mission, what they're looking for, etc. But sometimes publishers also have internal goals. We want to go in this direction. We want more books that have this tone or flavor or meet this market. And they may not be communicating to the public and you don't know what it is. So don't be so down on yourself. That happens all the time. Editor's taste. Can't do anything about that. There are books that when I was choosing titles for this small press that I definitely didn't want, but we published anyway, just being honest. Weren't to my taste, but they fit parameters for other things. I was with a small press, so it wasn't always 100% up to me. I would make my recommendations, but if whoever isn't muted, Laura, if you could mute whoever's, thank you. Sometimes at small presses, there's, a lot of people trying to push certain books and make decisions. So an editor's taste may or may not play a factor, but it very often does. And there's nothing you can do about it. If they just aren't into it, that's it. It's not about if your book's any good, okay? A publisher's track record with books like yours. So let's say you have a book about healing relationships. And so they published a book recently about healing relationships and it didn't go so well. Or in fiction, it's really popular, there's we did 4 books that were a series and they didn't sell well. So if there was the publisher that had a bad track record with a certain type of book that's similar to yours, they might say, we don't want to go there again. And you might not know that. So that's not in your control, okay? Team strengths and weaknesses is also a factor. I'll give you an example. The house that I worked for, strong in some areas editorially and not in others. So I often would get support whenever we wanted to publish literary fiction because, quite frankly, I didn't feel like I was the most capable in that department. Or maybe the marketing team isn't that great in getting that message out for that type of genre. So the publisher might say, we love this book, but I don't think we can do it justice, right? So that might be something you don't hear about. It's not going to come in the rejection letter, but maybe internally they're saying, we love it, but we just can't pull this off, which actually is great if they're doing that, being honest about it. And then trends. And the reason I have trends in quote marks is because it changes so much. And, one moment it's high concept fantasy and the next minute that's totally out. And so it's also, it's perceptions of trends as well. So people will say that's out or that's hot right now. But is it, a lot of it is what we all agree on. So trends are another factor. If a publisher says that's not on trend or that's out and nobody's buying those now, these are all reasons why you might be rejected that you can't do anything about. And unfortunately, you may not know that this is the reason. But take heart, this is not about you. What you can control is what we're talking about today. The things that you can do to put your best foot forward to get a yes. So I want to dispel a myth. Your manuscript does not have to be 100% perfect. You'll never turn it in if that's the case. As an editor, I know how to tell if a book has really wonderful promise. So maybe there's some things that have to be fixed. Maybe there's insufficient character development with a side character. Maybe there's a messy middle. Maybe the ending needs work. Maybe there's some other character development that has to be addressed, or world building, or maybe if it's nonfiction, the framework isn't really tested, or the sequencing needs to shift. But I can tell, okay, we have something here. I'm willing to put in the work. Just so we're clear, editors will make those decisions. We'll say, it's not quite there, but we can do it. We can, that's part of our job, is to see potential and then nurture that potential so that the book is all it could be. So it's not like, just hand me a perfect manuscript, thank you very much, and then I'm going to go ahead and publish it. It's put your best manuscript out there, do everything that is within your control, and then let an editor decide if they can work with it. Basically, we don't want heavy lifting. That's what I would always say in an editorial meeting. The rest of the team would say, well, what do you think you can do it? And I would say, it's heavy lifting. Why does this matter? Because editors are usually extremely overworked, everybody. And so heavy lifting means I've got a lot of extra work here to do. And we also know that when we see heavy lifting in a manuscript, that means that the author might be a little bit of a newbie and may need to learn things in the process, which is also heavy lifting for us. An editor's job is not to teach you to be a better writer. The editor's job is to make the manuscript better. Okay. Heavy lifting, if I really believed in a project, I would take it on. But if I'm backed up like so many editors are, I'm probably going to pass. Okay. And there are contributing factors to this. So I want to give you just some context for how I evaluated submissions, so you know what my process was. Now, not every editor handles things in the same fashion, but there's a lot of crossover. Okay. So when I received a submission, I first looked at the query, and then I checked to see if they followed the submission guidelines. If I'm still feeling good, I'll look at the first page, but I might actually not look at the first page if the query is really awful. If the first page grabs me enough, I'll read the first chapter. Then if I feel like, oh, okay, maybe there's something here, I now we'll read the bio, the other materials, because I don't pay attention to that stuff initially. I want to see if there's a book here. Then I'll go back. So then I'll also check platform. Notice I'm not checking that first. I need to go see now, okay, do they exist online? Are they serious about authorship? And then once I've gone through all these steps and I say, okay, maybe I'll read the whole thing. But I might stop at any stage of this process and decide I'm not going to go move forward. And it depends on if there are certain red flags. One red flag, it's not going to be a big deal to me. It's how they stack up. Till finally I think, oh, there's too many. And then I'm going to reject it. So we're talking about that today. Okay. So here are the main reasons that I would reject a manuscript in order of significance. It was the wrong fit for our mission as publisher and publishing goals. Not anything you can control, right? It had bad writing. That was always number two. Lack of clarity. So if it were nonfiction, it would be lack of clarity about core message, ideal reader, promise. If it was fiction, lack of clarity about sometimes even which genre were they writing in, not really understanding their clear vision of their story, etc. And then if the author was too green, which some of the red flags I'm about to share with you would tell me, I can spot it. Or if the author was too arrogant. We passed on manuscripts because we knew, based on the personality and the query, that we would never be able to work with that person because they were too arrogant. Sometimes authors try and sound super confident, right? And they're trying to just get attention with bold statements and lots of adjectives and superlatives. And the thing is, sometimes it comes across as arrogant. And it's actually not for you to tell an editor that this is the best book ever. It's for an editor to figure that out for themselves. And so when people came across as arrogant, it was definitely something that we knew going forward, the working relationship would be difficult. Working relationship matters. Any questions so far? Okay. So now I want to show you my big red flags, my top. There's a bunch of them. There's probably dozens. But these are the main ones that really got my attention. So if they started to stack up, I might think this person isn't clear. This person's too green. This person's arrogant. This is the wrong fit. So the first one is so simple, y'all. You can do this, but you would be shocked how many submissions I received in the hundreds that had incorrect manuscript formatting. There is a standardized manuscript format. It's not hard. You can do it. Here it is. Take a little picture or a screenshot. This is the correct manuscript format. When I see deviations, what does that tell me? Disregarding industry norms, too green, and possibly arrogant. So those are flags for me. This is very standard. Make it so. This is totally within your control. In my workshop, I ask my students to start writing this way. Just start. Don't try and format later because then you get frustrated. It also makes you feel kind of cool when you start to see your manuscript come together and it looks like a real manuscript. When I got a manuscript and it was single spaced or, oh my gosh, no page numbers, what on earth? Okay. Or extra spaces after periods or weird margins. Any of those things, I absolutely I just wonder why. It's literally 1 2-minute Google search to get this. It's not a trade secret. So please do this. This is 100% in your control, and it shows that you're a professional and you're taking this seriously and you respect the industry that requires this. Also, please do not submit anything in PDF, pages, unless the submission guidelines say to do that. Okay. Second, really simple one. I know this seems, why is she saying this? Why wouldn't you follow the submission guidelines? Because I would say over half of the people who submitted that I reviewed did not follow it. Do you understand how this 1 to 2% acceptance rate happens? People are absolutely making it harder on themselves by disregarding things. Publishers have their own submission guidelines. Go read them. If you have an agent, the agent is handling that. So you don't have, they'll tell you what to do. But your agent, if you don't have one yet, has their own submission guidelines too. Go read it, write it down, follow it. It can be annoying at first because maybe one publisher wants a 200-word synopsis and another publisher wants a 2-page synopsis. It's a lot of extra work. Do it anyway. Eventually, you start to have enough of everything that you can just plug in what you've got. I cannot tell you how many times a person tried to get stuff past me with their reasoning. I know you said you won't accept manuscripts over 90,000 words, but my 130,000 word manuscript is awesome. Or, no, thank you. I'm not going to take it. Or, you know, there's a reason. If a publisher says I can't take it above this word count, there are reasons for it. They know what they can and can't do, what their capacity is. They also know the books they can sell. 130,000 word manuscript, for example, is extremely expensive to get to market and to print. So don't try to second guess their submission guidelines or skirt around it. And then don't ask me to solve it for you. I received a lot of submissions. Well, mine's 40,000 words over the limit, but maybe you can tell me where to make cuts. No. Your editor, the acquisitions editor who's making these decisions, is not an editor that you are hiring, right? It's not their job to tell you how to fix it. Now, some editors will say, I really liked it. You can revise and resubmit based on these suggestions I'm making if you so choose, and we'll give you some suggestions, but it's rare that happens. If they really love it, they might do it. I did it a handful of times over 8 years, less than 5. So please do not ignore submission guidelines. Submission guidelines might include a wish list. This is something that's important. Publishers will often update their guidelines. So let's say you made a list of submission guidelines, or you're relying on Writer's Market or another source to tell you what the guidelines are. Don't count on that. Go to the website right before you submit just to see if anything changed. They might have new parameters. They might have new stuff they're looking for. Most publishers have a wish list. They might not be telling you. They might be telling agents. But sometimes they will say in submission guidelines. Sometimes they'll also say on their social media. Agents often have a wish list, and you can usually find out on the social media. Submission guidelines may also include how much of your manuscript to send and which part. Maybe they want the first chapter. Maybe they want the whole thing. Maybe they just want the first 30 pages. So read that carefully. Then also the required supportive materials. Some may want a bio. Some may want a synopsis and a tagline. Some may want content warnings, etc. Go read it and find out what you have to attach. And don't attach anything they don't want. It will also tell you what not to send. It'll tell you the query length requirements. A query is usually sent via email now. It's that first touch with the publisher or agent that's basically pitching your book with hoping to get a request for the manuscript. In fiction, you're going to have a query and the manuscript most times. If I see a super long query, I can tell that person's too green. They don't have enough experience. They might say the manuscript length requirements, which I just talked about. They might have a questionnaire or form to fill out. This is not everything. So go check before you submit what are the submission guidelines. So that's a big red flag. When people don't follow it, I always think this person can't follow instructions, or they're new, or they just think it doesn't matter. It doesn't, that they're above it, that they don't have to adhere to it, which tells me there's going to be problems going forward. Any questions so far? Okay. Too much exposition on the first page. Oh my gosh.
Actually, AJ, as you asked that, some questions came into the chat. One of them was, can you talk about length of query letter?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want it to be pretty short. You know, you want it to be under, say, I prefer under, 400 words, but there might be a specific requirement. So go check and see what it is.
The second question, AJ, and then I'll turn the microphone back to you. If the submission guidelines aren't outlined on their website, should you send a query?
It will be there. If the submission guidelines aren't on a publisher's website, it means that you need an agent to submit to them. I mean, you're not going to see submission guidelines at Penguin Random House or their imprints, but you will see it at a lot of different publishers, and that's one way to tell if you can submit or not. And if they require a representation for submission, then your agent will handle it for you and instruct you about what they need from you to make the submission, because agents submit on your behalf. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Yeah, it sort of, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really small press that I'm looking at. And it says for submissions, email, and it gives me an email. but no other guidelines.
Okay. So in that respect, that's kind of strange. It is odd. That would be a red flag in the other direction for me, that they don't have submission guidelines listed anywhere.
Okay.
That said, just email them and say, will you please send me your submission guidelines?
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Easy enough.
One great question just came in. When they ask a general question like, tell us about your book, what should you include?
Oh, well, you want to, it depends. Okay. So is this nonfiction or fiction? Nonfiction?
Nonfiction.
Okay. So you want your fundamentals that I talk about in my book, Write a Must Read. Who's your reader? The reader statement specifically, not a big long avatar. What is your core, what problem are they trying to solve? What is your core message and how does that solve the problem? What is the promise of your book? I would also add, what is the urgency in getting this book to market now? Why now? So that's what I would include in a summary if it was nonfiction. Any follow-ups there? Okay. If we've already passed something and you want to ask a question about an earlier point of information, no problem. Don't worry about it. Okay, so the third red flag for me, and this is a big one, and it comes in both nonfiction and fiction, too much exposition on the first page. If I see a lot of telling me what I need to know before you're going to get to the story or the good stuff, that is a huge red flag for me. It tells me that the author does not understand how to hook a reader on the first page. And you have to be able to hook a reader on the first page, and the first line should be hooking. And it also tells me that an author doesn't understand that content can be revealed over time. That requires some skill and practice, and they may not have that skill yet, which would mean what? The author might be too green. So when there's too much exposition, that is a flag for me. Tells me that we are going to have some writing issues going forward, and we might have heavy lifting. Also, if you don't hook me on the first page, I don't know that I'm going to turn it. You have to understand I might have 50 manuscripts I have to get through. So don't make it harder for me. So solutions, start in the action, reveal the backstory over time. The reader does not need to know as much as you think, and that goes for stories in nonfiction and fiction. If it's nonfiction, start in the pain or the problem, right in the worst part. If it's fiction or nonfiction, turning point, which is another way of starting in the action. But starting in the action with a pain or problem is a turning point. Go right there. Even if you think, I can't start there because they don't know these people yet, or they don't know anything about me yet. We don't need to know everything about you before you teach us stuff. And we don't need to know everything about characters before you throw them into trouble. In fiction, one of the most common mistakes authors make is starting with somebody looking out a window or getting out of bed or getting dressed for the day, walking through their house, thinking about things. No, this is a no. If it's nonfiction, I see a lot of people talk about themselves and all of the things about themselves that we don't actually need to know because we could just read your bio. So let's start in the juice, everybody. Start in the juice. If you really feel like I'm going to be missing something, then weave it in and let it unfold for me. Readers are smarter than you think. Number 4 red flag is easily fixable errors. I felt silly putting this class together because I thought, people know this, right? But then I remembered all the times I received a manuscript that could have honestly just been run through spell check. And it's so disrespectful, y'all, to editors, acquisitions editors, and to agents. Please don't do it. If you can fix it, fix it. Some stuff you might not be able to fix because you have not memorized the Chicago Manual of Style, which is the preferred style guide for the American publishing industry. Or maybe you're just not a grammar nerd. No prob. That's fine. That's what copy editors are for. I'm talking really blatant, easily fixable stuff that somehow is left in manuscripts. Okay, don't do it. Common mistakes I legit saw on a daily basis in manuscripts. Spelling errors, punctuation errors. Here's a big one. Leaving track changes red lines. So track change is what you turn on in Microsoft Word when you're making edits. And then you can see your deletions and crossouts and replacement text. You need to accept all changes before you turn it in. I got so many manuscripts with track changes throughout it. I don't want to see that. I want a clean manuscript. Mixed or messy formatting. So part of it's correct, then some of it's single spaced, then the margins change. Now, first they're using bullet points with a circle. Now it's a check mark. Now it's a this. Now it's a that. Indents, sometimes but not always. Headers, sometimes but not always. Be consistent with the formatting. It teaches us how to read the book. And then incorrect dialogue tags is a huge one. I want everybody to take a class, a mini class, if you can. There's actually, Laura's going to give you all the submission checklist, which is free on writeamustread.com. And it's something I give. This thing I put together with copy editors, it's not even comprehensive, you guys. It's not in any way. It's just stuff that the copy editors that I worked with when I was an editor at this publishing house, it's the stuff that always got to us that we had to fix. You can download that. In there, there are information about doing correct dialogue tags, by the way. Any questions on that stuff? Laura?
With regard to the subject you just wrapped up, if you are Canadian and you're submitting to the US, should you correct
Yes.
the spelling? Yes, the answer is. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying that our spelling is correct Canadians. It's not. It's just that if you want American publishing companies to publish it, you should change it. Okay. Any others, Laura?
There is a question. It's a little bit more detailed. Can you give an example of a turning point on page 1 for nonfiction?
For nonfiction, sure. The lowest moment in your journey or in another person's journey that you're writing about, a client, a friend, a colleague, a famous person, whatever, Paul Revere, whatever. The lowest point in the journey when things are about to change. So the turning point is when the person in the story comes to a new way of thinking that leads to a change in behavior. And very often it's the lowest point. Not always, but it very often is. Is that helpful? Yeah? Okay. Here's one that might make you nervous. Weak prose. So this is where we start to say, I'm not a good writer. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not talented. But there are simple things you can do to strengthen your prose. That submission checklist will actually help you quite a lot. You'll be surprised. It's kind of a lot to get through it. So it's not a walk in the park. You're gonna email me later and say, this is so freaking tedious. I can't believe you're having me do this. But then you're gonna have stronger prose. So this isn't really about if you're talented or smart. This is about, do you understand this craft? And you can learn it. And it's not everything. You're not about to get a Pulitzer by fixing this stuff, but these are tells for me. When I see weak prose like this, it's a tell for me that this person is not experienced, and therefore I have what? Heavy lifting. Okay. I will tell you, I have actually taken manuscripts that an author could not fix, and I have done it for them. And I never want to do that. Editors never want to do that. And the reason we do in the end is because we're getting pressure from the publisher that we have to, because the book's been promoted and has to come out. And you as the editor know, oh God, I can't put it out like this. And then you realize that the author can't pull it off. So what are you left to do? Saturday night after Saturday night, rewriting that thing to fix the stuff happens every day. But I don't want that, right? They'll do it for celebrities. They'll do it for all sorts of reasons, but I don't want that. So let's fix some tells. Unintentional repetition, big one, major. Repetition can be wonderful for creating tension, emphasis, lyricism. Unintentional repetition tells me sloppy. I do it all the time. Let's be clear. I have unintentional repetition constantly. A very simple tool for finding unintentional repetition is Grammarly. Grammarly is ace at that. Then you can decide, did I mean to repeat that because I want to be lyrical in this moment or to emphasize, or did I just say that word 9 times too many? Okay, let me fix it. Filter words. This one's huge, especially in fiction, but also in any narrative storytelling you're doing in nonfiction. A filter word is not the same as a filler word. And so you might say to yourself, oh, I think she means unnecessary words like actually, in order to, kinda, really, in the event of. Those are filler words we actually don't need. We actually call them weasel words, which I'm about to get to. Filter words are words that filter the experience for the reader, to takes away immediacy in storytelling. So an example would be, I heard the phone ring downstairs. That's heard is filtering the word, filtering the experience. I heard. Without a filter word, it's the phone rang downstairs. Okay. We do it all the time. In that submission checklist, y'all, all the bad filter words are there. Now, doesn't mean you should never use these words ever. It just means in context, you might be using them as filter. The most common are felt and feel, saw and heard, realized. Realize. These are filter words. If you can fix them, it's tedious. I think probably my authors that I edited for would like to get me some sort of doll or something that's a monster that says filter word on it because I said it so much. But I'm going to tell you that those authors don't do that anymore. So, and it's a tell for me, and it's a tell for other editors. Okay. Passive voice. There's 80 million articles on how to avoid passive voice. I'm not going to teach you right now, but quick way to check is looking for if you're writing was, if you're using gerunds, ing words. If you can remove passive voice, that's great. If you can remove what I call weasel words, fillers, kinda, sorta, maybe, actually, in the event of, in order to, honestly. If I were being on it, to be honest, don't do it. Why wouldn't you be? Why are you suddenly honest and the rest of the time you weren't? It's all the extra words we throw in. In my opinion, just state it. Don't say in my opinion. Your whole book is the opinion. Too many exclamation points, people. No, 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 no. Do a search and find for your exclamation points. I'm telling you right now, if I could get you to stop using them so that it's you literally have less than 5, I would be thrilled in your entire manuscript. But that's personal opinion. It can't all be exclamation points. Otherwise, you diminish everything, right? Starting sentences with there are, there is weak construction. Restructure it so you don't need it. These last two, oh my gosh, makes my head spin. Relying on parentheses to complete your sentence and make it clear, and relying on em dashes. That's the double dash. We use it, and we kind of use it because we don't know how to finish our sentence, or we're in the middle of writing it and then we change our minds or we forgot something. And it's the same reason why we use parentheses. Be very careful about using them. It's not that you shouldn't use them, it's that people overuse them constantly. And they overuse them in prose, they overuse them in fiction and nonfiction. Any questions? Listen, if y'all could do this, if you could just do this, you don't need to be Toni Morrison, but if you could do this, I would be, oh my gosh, I would say, oh, look, because what that tells me is you tried and that you will listen to editorial feedback and that you have some basic understanding of some really simple stuff, okay? So those are some tells for me. And number 5, this one, I thought about maybe I wasn't going to include this because it's so common, but the problem is we just keep doing it. And it's hard to get good at this. So be gentle with yourself if you do it. And I guarantee you do it. It takes a lot of practice to stop telling versus showing. So telling is when you tell me what happened or you tell me what you think of something. Showing me is when you take me there into the moment and you show me. Either you describe the scene or you take me into the scene. So don't tell me you were excited. Describe your rapid heartbeat, your goosebumps, your shaky knees, whatever it is. Don't tell me you had a conversation. Give me the dialogue. And you see how I have in parentheses? That's the correct use of a parentheses. Important, meaning I don't need the entire, where did you go to the store? When did you leave? 5 o'clock. When will you be back? 7. I don't need all that. I just want the turning point stuff. When we learn something new through dialogue about a person or the situation, or it incites behavior or change, I don't need all the stuff. What day is it? Tuesday? I thought it was Wednesday. No, it's Tuesday. Didn't you think it was Wednesday? No, I didn't. I was fine. We don't care about that. We care about, did you see you have a letter from your mom in the mailbox? If mom hasn't written you in 20 years, that's a big point of dialogue. Don't tell me you realized something major. Give me the moment of realization. Actually show me something dawning on you. We write with our rear view mirror. That's what we do. Write straight ahead, looking out the window, driving down the road. Don't write the rear view, write what's in front of you. Meaning, don't tell me you realized something. Don't tell me something dawned on you, in fiction or nonfiction. Show it happening. I'm going to curse now. I'm sorry. Let me see. Holy shit, I never thought of that. Let me see. Wait, could that be true? Let me see. Disillusionment happen. Let me see the veil lift. Those are just some examples. This takes a lot of practice, everybody. Just try. Just try. So here's a bunch of other red flags that are not in my top, but if I had a bunch of those and these, I'm not going to say yes. Okay. When the author is not well read in the genre, please don't do this to yourself. Okay. You need to understand the genre you are writing in. You would be shocked at how many authors I would ask them, what genre are you writing in? And they couldn't answer. Or I would say, who are your favorite authors? And they didn't read in the genre. If for no other reason but to understand your market so you can sell it and position it properly, please do it. But also because a great big part of becoming an author, your citizenship, literary citizenship, they call it, is understanding the industry and understanding the other authors and stories in your genre. That also tells me, if you're not well read in the genre, that you don't know folks. You don't know other authors who might be able to help you promote that thing, who will go on a panel with you, who will introduce you to a bookstore, who will get you a speaking engagement, who will send out an email on your behalf. You don't know anyone. That's what that tells me. So it's a huge red flag for me that we've got heavy lifting in the marketing department. When the author doesn't have a website or social media, if you can put up a website in 20 minutes. It doesn't have to be fancy. Put your picture, put your fundamentals, a contact info, dunsy duns. At least it shows that you're there and you exist and you know you have to have one of these. Social media, you don't have to be everywhere all the time, but show that you understand you need to be somewhere. And you don't even have to have a million or thousands or even hundreds of followers. You just need to be interacting somewhere. And if you aren't sure how to start with that other part about authors. Start by amplifying other authors in your genre, supporting them, reviewing them, reposting their stuff. Start there. When an author doesn't have this, oh my gosh, it's going to be so much work to sell the book, honestly. When the author displays arrogance or bravado in their query, I mentioned this before, I'm mentioning it again. It happens a lot. You should publish this. This will be the best book you've ever read. What a privilege it is for you to edit this book. If you read nothing else, read my book. This is a masterpiece. All things people have said to me. Maybe it is. Maybe it is, but don't tell your editor that you're trying to get to buy your book that it's a masterpiece. Especially when you submitted it with spelling errors. Don't do that. Don't use superlatives, no adjectives. Just take them out. Just tell me who it's for, what's the gist, why it matters, why now. Thank you so much. Show me that you understand the genre you are trying to write in. Show me that you understand that authorship is a partnership with your publisher and that you are actually going to try and sell it. But don't say, here's my perfect thing, which I expect a publishing deal from you. I've had people say, if I don't hear back from you on Tuesday, I'm moving on. Like, okay, well, goodbye. Because you obviously don't understand that an editor is literally drowning in manuscripts. So you just made it very, very easy. If we can find ways to reject a manuscript, we will. I'm just being blunt. Because it's exhausting. It just is. This is why so many editors and agents have windows when they take submissions and then they don't the rest of the time. They've got to get their life in order to be able to do it. It's a massive undertaking.
AJ?
Yeah.
So we have a question regarding the red flag just before this one that you had. If someone, and this is from Erica, Erica has a large social media following that she shares somewhat with her husband based on photography. Does she need to create a social media presence that is just herself?
Yes. I think you mean this one. This, yeah. Yeah, it would be good, but you should still mention the large, so that the other one exists. But, you know, you should have control over your own social that's just you as well. When the query is too long, I said this already, I'll say it again. I don't want 3,000 words in the email. It tells me that you don't know how, you don't actually know the real hook and compelling factors of your story or your manuscript. Tells me you don't know. Now, if you're writing nonfiction, the good news is if you get your fundamentals right that are in my book, chapters 2 through 4, if you can get that right, it's like a dream for an editor and agent. Oh my gosh, this. Thank you so much. And for fiction, still understanding your reader, what's the central question, understanding the hook of the story, all of those things, keep it tight. It takes time to get it that way, but please do it. If the query's too long, I think that you might not understand the industry and might not have taken the time you need to get your query right. When the author has little knowledge of book marketing. So an example would be when I was acquiring titles, we started asking, how do you plan to promote your book? And then we always got, save for maybe a couple times, one sentence, the bad already. I'm going to do Amazon. I'm going to do Goodreads giveaways. And I'm going to post quotes and things on social media. Which what that told me was you are doing nothing to promote this book and you have no understanding. The good news is there's so much information online for how to do this. And if you just pay attention to how other authors do things at their launches, I recommend you get on author mailing lists, participate in launches, pay attention. You don't even need to take a class. Just pay attention to what other people are doing and R&D it. Just grab it for yourself. That's what I'm going to do. Demonstrate to a publisher that you understand that your role is in partnership with them and that you have to do your part. Here's a big one. When it's clear the author hasn't researched the publisher. Do you know what they publish? Don't send your historical fiction fantasy piece to me if I am publishing nonfiction textbooks. Don't send it. Don't do a blanket, send and hope for the best. Pay attention to what they like to publish. Pay attention to what matters to them. Pay attention to their mission. Go look at their news updates. Did they recently add a bunch of people to the team or are they downsizing? Are they taking a break? Are they trying to go for more diversity? What's happening? It's easy. They have blogs and news updates and press releases. It takes 2 minutes. So do your homework on the publisher. We find it very annoying, and I'm not a publisher anymore, but I can tell you, found it very annoying when people just absolutely had no idea who we were. One good way also I'm going to tell you when I always paid attention. When I always paid attention and read more than the first page. When a person knew our little company and had read one of the books and said why they liked it. And I was, you know why? Because I probably edited that thing. And so I'm proud of it. And publishers are proud of the books they put out. They actually, most people in publishing honestly love books. They do. They love books. It takes us a year or two to get a book to market sometimes. So if you tell me, oh my gosh, I love that book so much, it's one of my faves in this scene, I'm just paying, oh, tell me more about your novel. Tell me more. Because I know you took the time. Now, do you have to read everything for the publishers you're pitching? No, but did you read something? Maybe go, or maybe you should read something. Before you submit, research your publisher, their guidelines, their mission, their wish list, their other titles. You can save yourself a lot of heartache if you have a book on relationships and that's about dating in your 20s, and they have just announced a book about dating in the 20s. You can save yourself a lot of time. Get feedback on your manuscript from ideal readers, or if it's fiction, beta readers, and a developmental editor. Format your manuscript correctly, fix easily fixable mistakes, strengthen your prose, practice writing queries. Don't send the first one you write. Practice it. Set up an author website and branded social media, and then start supporting other authors in your genre. It's a little checklist, take a screenshot. Because you can't control a lot of things in publishing. But if you can get this stuff under control, you have a massive advantage, because most people aren't doing this. It's nuts, right? But it's true. I promise you it's true. I promise you it's true. People always want shortcuts, and they feel justified in having them. And if you don't do that to the publisher you're submitting to, they will be glad. And they will say, okay, well, let me consider this. Too many shortcuts, too many red flags. We don't want to be bothered. Okay. I know that was a lot of information. I want to take a 5-minute break. Or do you want 10? Want 10? We'll do 5. And then I want to come back and just get some insights from you, and also additional questions you might have. And then I also kind of want to see if you have a new plan, you know? Okay, let's do 5. So I have definitely picked up manuscripts that had a couple of flags. Maybe it had a little bit of weak prose. Maybe the person needed to build out their social, or didn't have a website yet. Maybe the query was a little too long, but I loved it, and the other red flags weren't there. I love to find an author who's amazing that I can help, that I can shape. Publishers want great new talent. The 1% to 2%, that's not because everybody's a hard nose. It's because mostly we don't get stuff that we know we can help turn into something great. So we want it though. So that's what I want you to understand. Publishers are always looking for new stuff. So you can absolutely make it happen. Let's just make it easier with some of these, avoiding these red flags. Okay, question from Jennifer. If we don't have any publications yet, do you still recommend an author website? It would just be a biography. Is that still better than bothering? Oh, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, put up a website. Even if you aren't published, you should have one. It shows intent to be a professional in authorship, but you don't just have a bio, Jennifer. You have probably the fundamentals about your book, themes that are interesting to you, central questions that maybe you're thinking about with the book. You probably have behind the scenes moments as an author. You probably have books you love and recommend. You probably have a lot. Are you here, Jennifer? Okay, I hope that helped. Kat, oh, there you are.
It did. Sorry, I was trying to unmute. I'm driving, so.
Oh, I forgot you're driving. Do you have a follow-up, Jennifer?
No, other than apologies for the typo, because I meant to say, is that better than nothing, not better than bothering. But yes,
Oh.
it was very helpful. So thank you.
Okay. Kat, on the one hand, I think we need to do homework to find a publisher of my genre and type of message. When is that a problem? As in they recently published a book like, okay, I'm not sure I follow the question, Kat.
Okay, so I heard what you were saying, like if you submit something and the publisher just released a book like yours, and I'm trying to kind of figure out, like on the one hand, I want to make sure I'm submitting to somebody of my genre and the kind of book. So I'm just trying to figure out if there's something more to that I should be considering.
Well, do they publish a lot of books on that same topic?
Well, for example, I found a publisher that has all women authors, women audience, typically inspirational oriented, books, which is exactly what I'm wanting to do or am doing.
Yeah.
So
well, what's a book that they recently published that's just like yours?
Well, I think that's what I need to the next level. And maybe I'm answering my own question, or you're answering, is to do more research on what those specific books are and how similar or different are they to what I'm writing.
Okay, so it should be pretty obvious. Don't go down a rabbit hole of trying to read all these books to see how similar they are. Just read the description, read the title, subtitle. But honestly, if it's a publisher that publishes a lot of titles like that, don't worry about it. So, and that might be the reason why they reject you. But if they're publishing a lot of titles like that, go ahead and submit, unless it's so exactly the same.
Yeah, I think by looking at the descriptors, I could also determine how mine might be a little different twist or contrarian view of the same kind of thing.
So it's a good thing if a publisher publishes a lot of books in your genre or on your theme. You know why? They know they sell and they know how to sell them.
Okay.
So that's a good thing for you. So if you can do your homework and then show the publisher, I noticed you published this, this, and this. I love these titles. I think I would be a great addition to your catalog because I come at this same theme from this different perspective.
Yeah. Thank you. That answers my question. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Other questions? Anyone? Okay. So I'd love to hear, well, before I do that, I just want to point out real quickly about the next classes. If you registered for the free summer school 2023, our third and final free class, you already are registered for. Oops, here it is. Writing mistakes editors have to fix, and that is going to be fun.
It's actually on July 10th.
Oh, shoot. I screwed up, everybody. It's on July 10th. It's on July 10th, and I hope you'll come. You're already registered. We also have 2 Mastercraft classes. They are the most requested based on a survey we conducted for a couple hundred authors. The first is Test Drive Your Book's content, which is where we are going to actually together in a 4-hour class design your content test drive so you can go out and do it. Make sure your content works for your ideal reader. And then we're going to come back together on October 18th and evaluate the data to figure out how to improve the book based on what you learned from the test drive. I've never offered this before, and it was the most requested. When you understand if your ideal reader gets your content, can use it, it's doable, and it makes a difference for them, that changes your ability to put out a must-read book that everyone's talking about. So that class is 2 parts that starts Wednesday, July 12th. And then the second most requested was Call to Greatness. If you're wondering what I mean by that, it's my own term for how to close your book. If you read my book, it's the Jack story at the end of my book. I'm going to teach you how to write a call to greatness that shows your reader that you delivered on the promise, builds them up, leaves them on such a high that they will go out and do the thing. There's a craft to it, and I'll be teaching that and you'll be working on it in that mastercraft on August 17th. And in the fall, starting at the end of August, we also have the must-read editing workshop, which is the entire editing pass method that I created as a ghostwriter and that I teach in my class. So if you have one chapter or a whole manuscript or anything in between, you can come learn how to edit your book so that it's ready for a developmental editor, ready for submission. I'll be teaching that. It's a 6-week class. And the last thing you should know is that our Top 3 Book Workshop, which I only teach twice a year, and maybe not teaching it twice a year, I haven't decided yet. I might be going down to 1 time next year, which I'll announce in August after I go on vacation and think about it. But we do this right now. We're doing it twice a year. And the next one is it starts in September. That's my 14-week class. I think we have a few spots left. So those people who are interested in have been wanting to do this class for a while, I'm giving everybody who signs up for workshop, my mastercrafts for free and the editing workshop. So it's a good deal. All right, I wanted to get that out there. I'd like to hear from you now, something you learned today that will be very applicable for you, that will change the way you submit or think about how you go about getting published. You would put in the chat something you found useful today. I can see you typing. Kat says, great resources that will set me apart. Yes, it will set you apart, Kat. Knowing what you can control and focus there. Yes, Sandy. Great. Margaret, need to get thinking on marketing for the book. Yes. Irina, start with the lowest point in the story, yours or a client. Yes. More confident. Oh, good, Clancy. I'm so glad. Patricia, discipline in following the rules and research publisher. Yes. Oh, hi, Sherry. Hi, Sherry. How are you? I haven't seen you in so long.
Long time. Great to see you.
Hi, your hair got so long.
Yeah, COVID, you know.
Yeah. Sherry says, getting me energized to get the dust balls off my manuscript. Yes, Sherry, I'm so glad to hear that. Yay, I love that you're here. Jane, I'm detail oriented when it comes to this work, so I have more optimism about being able to differentiate my book. Yes. Yes. Anyone else want to share? Anne says, need to work on weak prose, but not sure of taking out adjectives. Oh, Anne, not adjectives in your manuscript. I mean in your query. In your query. Is that clear, Anne? Okay, good. Don't take the adjectives out of your manuscript. Edie says, understanding the query letter, good. Margot says, a lot of gems to support the infrastructure of the whole world of publishing, not just the words of writing. Yes, good. Okay, so we have a few minutes left if anybody has any follow-up questions. Jessica says, love the advice on the first page. Looking forward to supporting and reading more in my genre. Oh gosh, yes, Jessica, that's so huge. Can I just say, if you have questions, put them in the chat, but I think we're going to wrap up early. If you do nothing else as marketing for yourself, supporting other authors in your genre, it pays dividends you can't even begin to know. The authors who have been successful that I've worked with have a network of authors that they built, even though they were unknown themselves and often weren't published yet, because they read their stuff, they supported their stuff, and they amplified their efforts. It's the easiest way to do it, and it's totally free. So I hope that all of you will do it, because we can't write in a vacuum. You're part of an industry, And each part of the publishing industry has subsets, little neighborhoods. So it's important for you to start that, and you could do it today, because here's the thing, you already read stuff in the genre. So you can start by supporting those people who maybe haven't had a kind word said about their manuscript that was 8 years old, right? You can start today with stuff you already did without even reading anything new. Okay. Edie, thank you so much. Edie is one of my workshop alums. That's so nice of you to say. Support each other. You are not competition with other authors. That's not true. You need to reframe that. They are your peers. They are your peers. People don't read one book on a topic. Just look at the most prolific and successful genre in the world, which is romance. They are reading 11 to 12 books a week. Yours can fit. Okay. Nonfiction, I don't know. Most entrepreneurs I know have about 100 business books on the shelf behind them, and that's just what they read this year. So across all genres and all focuses, people are reading voraciously on topics. Just recently, I was looking for books on, and by the way, if you have any, put them in the chat. If you have any recs. I'm looking for books on how do you come to terms with not so much the empty nest, because I'm good. My son just graduated from high school. Bless. Thank you. I'm good with the empty nest. I'm psyched to spend more time with my wife. That said, I feel like there's not a lot out there about the transition of how you parent an adult and how you kind of stay out of it, but stay connected. So what did I do? I bought 4 books on the topic looking for one. I didn't buy one, I bought 4 based on recommendations. And that's what we do. So you're not in competition. All right. Okay. I hope this was helpful today. I hope I see you at the next free class. And if you have questions about any of the classes, hit Laura up, laura@ajharper.com. Have a great day, everyone.